Everyone, it's Friday the 26th of February, and in today's lesson you're going to be looking at debating and debating skills. So take a moment now and have a think. What is a debate, and have you ever seen or taken part in a debate? Well, a debate is a type of discussion where people give their opinions on a topic. So you might have had a debate during a writing lesson, for instance, where we're discussing maybe, or in reading, where we're discussing the outcome of a book or whether a character should do something. Particularly the big question springs to mind for that. You may have seen debates on television, such as around the time of a general election, where politicians are debating current affairs and important matters. You may have seen snippets of debates in the House of Commons as well on the news, and we'll look into that in a little bit more detail later. You may have also had a debate in PSHE or around the time of your school council elections as well. So have a think now. How are good debating skills relevant to our school? Pause and have a think for a moment. Well, they're really important because in school, everyone is allowed to have their own opinion and is entitled to share it and to speak out as long as what they are saying is kind and doesn't encourage hate. And we should listen to each other, even though we may not agree. Differences are really important because they challenge our way of thinking. We should take on board other people's different opinions or points of view and don't just dismiss them. It's important to understand other people's sides of their argument as well. Because again, everyone is entitled to have their opinion and had it be heard and received respectfully. So, what makes a debate? So in a debate, each person speaking has a certain amount of time to speak. They present the facts and their opinion and state their point of view. And how to share your opinion. So when you're in a debate, it's vital that you share correct and accurate information. So your goal is to make other people come round to your way of thinking, and it's not fair if you start then to make things up or exaggerate beyond the truth in order to convince people. Then you're not being completely honest. So it's important that what you say is correct and accurate, but the way you present the information should be persuasive. So when you're sharing your opinion, you want to speak loudly and clearly, so not aggressively or shout. People can often get quite swept up in the emotions of a debate, and what was once passion for the subject can be misinterpreted as maybe aggression or anger. So remember, confidence, loud and clear, but not to the point where it's aggressive. Maintaining a good pace and varying your tone to make your point sound interesting. If you present all your information in a really monotonous voice, then people will simply stop listening to you and won't take on board your ideas. And then obviously your points will not be convincing at all in that case, because they won't even be listening to what you're saying. Now, we're going to try and do some debating this afternoon on our briefing. So this is a bit trickier, but in the classroom environment, we'd be expected to maintain eye contact with the person or the people you're debating with. So on your afternoon calls, you want to be thinking about looking at the screen or at the webcam if you can, and then it will look more engaging to the people you're talking to. Whereas if you're looking away or looking down, then that gives the same impression that you're not confident about what you're saying. Easier said than done. Sound confident in what you're saying, sound like you believe in that opinion, and then you will convince people by the way you sound that you are trustworthy, and they will come around to your ideas. And stay focused on the main points. Don't get swept along and go off on a tangent and talk about something else. You want to stick to what the debate is actually about, the main argument. And ultimately, if you do all of these things, you will sound as persuasive as possible. And challenging others. So earlier on, I mentioned that it's important that we respond and hear other people's opinions, even though they may be different to ours. And it's absolutely fine to disagree. Not everyone will agree on every point, and that is not the intention of a debate. That's why we have an open discussion about it, to see other sides of the argument. It's expected that we'll disagree, but the way we disagree has to be done respectfully. And that means that you mustn't attack someone personally for their different opinion or talk over them. That is absolutely not okay. You should hear them out, listen to what they're saying in full. Everyone has a right to voice their own opinion, and it should be heard. Sorry, there is a typing error here. And it should be heard respectfully. Have some empathy in this situation. How frustrated would you feel if someone kept talking over your points. So you want to put yourself in their shoes, hear them out, listen to them, nod, even if you're not necessarily agreeing with what they're saying, but to show that you're listening. Okay? And part of that is having something called active listening skills. And this is in some ways just as important as the content you put forward in the debate. Active listening means not just hearing what someone is saying or just receiving the information, but it's actually processing what they are saying, concentrating on what they are saying to fully comprehend and understand it. Then, and only then, can you respond appropriately. So have a think now, why is that so important to debating? And what might happen if people don't actively listen in a debate? Well, it's really important in debating because that person may bring up new points. And if you don't actually listen to those new points that they're bringing up, then you can't respond to them, and then you're not arguing against those particular points, and those points will seem more persuasive to the audience. What might happen if people don't actively listen? Well, it means that previous points may be repeated. They may have said something that you're going to say. And this applies on both sides of the debate as well. So if someone makes a point that you don't agree with on the opposing side and you don't actively listen, then you can't dispute their point, and they may actually sound more persuasive. If it's someone on your side of the debate who you agree with but you don't actively listen to them, you may end up just repeating what they've said, and that will make it seem like that your side of the debate are running out of ideas, perhaps. And it's just not good to repeat what they've said. They'll feel like they haven't been listened to, and that just isn't respectful. And by actively listening, it allows you to fully understand the other person's point of view, whether you agree with them or not. So there's some techniques you can use to become an active listener. You need to pay attention, and that means looking at the person while they're talking, not looking around the room or looking at your own things, making notes and so on. You want to pay attention. You want to withhold judgment, so you want to take their point on board, but from without a biased point of view if possible. You need to be patient, so you need to wait your turn. Quite often people want to jump in and say what they're thinking because they feel so strongly about it, but actually by being patient, taking a moment and hearing them, you are actively listening to what they're saying. Body language fits in with the paying attention. You want to be looking at them, eye contact, looking like you're happy to receive that information that they're stating. Restating what they've said, so this is perhaps more applicable to a conversation, but an important one to remember nonetheless, of repeating what they've said to show that you've understood it, and then asking questions that really shows that you have engaged with what they've said, that you're interested, and that is a good way to build on the debate by pulling them up on things that they've already mentioned. So before we obviously have our debates this afternoon, I think it's important to practice a bit of active listening. And there are lots of games that use active listening as a basis, such as Simon Says, which I'm sure you've said already. Maybe if we've got time in our briefings, we can have a quick game of that as well. But in a moment, I'm going to give you some information that you must listen to. And afterwards, I'm going to ask you a question about what you've heard. Are you ready? So pretend you're a bus driver. It is your job to drive the main street bus. One day you get on a bus and you start to count. At the first stop, 5 people get on your bus. At the next stop, 3 people get on and 2 people get off the bus. At the next stop, 2 people get off the bus. At the next stop, 3 people get on and 1 person gets off the bus. So my question is, what colour are the eyes of the bus driver? Okay, I will repeat it one more time for you if you need another chance. So pretend you're a bus driver. It is your job to drive the main street bus. One day you get on the bus and you start to count. At the first stop, 5 people get on your bus. At the next stop, 3 people get on and 2 people get off the bus. At the next stop, 2 people get off the bus. At the next stop, 3 people get on and 1 person gets off the bus. And what colour are the eyes of the bus driver? Okay, so this is an interesting listening test game, active listening test, because apparently 87% of people who take that test for the first time will not be able to answer the question, and that's because they weren't listening actively. The second time round, 50% will be able to get the correct answer because obviously they know what to expect. They're listening out for the question. So, did you get it the first time? Well, the answer is whatever colour eyes you have is the answer to the riddle. So if it was me, I've got brown eyes, so the bus driver would have brown eyes. If you've got blue eyes, then the answer would be blue, because the first line tells you it is the bus driver, that you are a bus driver, and it's asking what colour eyes does the bus driver have. So if you didn't get the answer, and especially if you didn't get it the first time round, you might have got it the second time. Is it because the numbers distracted you? Maybe you expected it to be a maths question, or maybe you were trying to figure out what the question was if you didn't listen to the beginning statement. And that is a sign that you weren't quite actively listening to that. You were already thinking in your mind of what point I was going to say or where I was going with that. And often anticipating what someone's going to say and focusing on what you're thinking interferes with active listening. So well done if you did get the answer straight away. You were active listening, and just be aware of that if you did need the second attempt to get the answer, that just to be careful that you are focusing exactly on what someone's saying without putting your own thoughts in there first. So we're going to do a little bit of debate practice now. So your debate topic practice: should school uniform be banned? Now I can imagine some of the responses that some of you are giving right now. And it's your turn to be an active listener, or rather an active reader in this case. Obviously in a classroom scenario this would be a little easier, but you're going to read some points on the next page. And you're going to argue against the points that have been made that say uniforms should be banned. So you're coming at this from the point of view that it shouldn't be. Okay, even if you don't necessarily think that yourself, it's important to be an active reader and engage with what's already been said and come up with a counter argument. Are there any other extra points that you could make? So the debate topic, I've given you 3 points here. Children should have the freedom to choose what they want to wear and express their personality. Most jobs don't need a uniform. And children should wear comfortable things. So pause the video here and have a think about that. How would you argue against me for each of those points? Now, I'm not going to share any answers for this because there are lots of different ways you could argue against me for those. So maybe you might want to jot your answers down and then you could put them on Seesaw and then we can discuss them in the afternoon briefings. So you're coming at it from the point of view that the school uniform shouldn't be banned, arguing against these 3 points that I've made. Okay, so pause the video here while you complete that and then press play once you're ready to continue. So, debating in politics. So you've got lessons today are quite politically themed. So we're going to look at debating within politics. So debating in politics is really important. In fact, one of the most important things members of the House of Commons and the House of Lords do. They spend a lot of their time debating important issues that affect the UK, such as schools, hospitals and the police, as well as what should be made in the law. And you may have seen quite a lot of that on the news quite recently with regards to discussing whether certain approaches have been appropriate, what we should do next with consideration to the global situation at the moment. So take a moment now and think, why is this a key British value? Why is the theme of it a key British value, and how is it linked to democracy? What is the danger if we don't debate issues? So just pause the video here while I have a think about that. Okay, so linked to democracy because it's so important that everyone has a right to share their own opinion. There are lots of differing and polarising views in the news at the moment. Everyone's got an opinion on how things should be done, and it's so important that those voices are heard and then a mutual decision can be agreed. Everyone's views have been taken into account, and it means that just not one person holds all of the power and makes a decision that will affect everyone else. The danger if we don't debate issues, if we just leave it for things to be changed, is that those voices aren't heard and taken into consideration. So really, really vital, really important for democracy that we have that open dialogue and open conversation, querying and questioning, so we can better understand the topic, get different points of view, and that hopefully more people will be satisfied with the outcome than fewer. So a debate in Parliament is based on a suggested idea called a motion. So an example of a motion could be the voting age should be lowered to 16. And in that case, members who are arguing to support the motion, usually MPs belonging to the government, are called the proposers, and they are for that motion passing. They will support that and want that to go ahead. Obviously, not everyone who is belonging to government will argue with that. They might argue against it, in which case members arguing against the motion, who are usually the opposition, are the opposers. They work against it. They don't want that to be passed as a motion. But within the debate, members take it in turns to speak, and there are certain rules that have to be followed. So a debate in the House of Commons is chaired by the Speaker, whose decision on all matters is final. Members should stand up to show that they would like to speak, and when the Speaker selects someone, everyone else must sit down while the chosen member makes their point. Take a moment now and think why that is so important. Why does someone have to stand up before they speak? Well, that makes it really clear who is intending to speak at that time. If you were just to shout out, it would quickly descend into chaos. You wouldn't be able to keep focus on who's speaking and when, and it's obviously a lot more visible than putting your hand up, because as you'll see, the House of Commons is quite large. It'd be quite difficult to, I think, keep track of who's put their hand up and when. Of course, it does get quite rowdy in there occasionally as well, so it doesn't always eliminate the risk of it getting noisy. And when the member has finished speaking, they sit down again, and everyone who wants to speak stands up again. And only one person can speak at a time, and that's so that their voice can be heard clearly, and then people can listen to that point of view. And if anyone does break the rules or the session becomes too rowdy, the Speaker will say, "Order, order," which means be quiet, and that should restore order, and then the opinions and views can be heard more clearly then. And the Speaker's decision is final. So debates in the House of Lords. Every day the House of Lords has the chance to question the government, questioning them on their actions and their decisions. And it's an important way that they hold the government to account. They ask the government what they are going to do about certain issues, and then they debate their response. So unlike in the House of Commons, members asking the question don't actually ask them out loud in the chamber. Instead, they're written down on paper, which is then published and sent out before the debate. The House of Lords regulates itself, so unlike the Speaker in the House of Commons, the Speaker in the House of Lords simply guides the debate and doesn't really control it. The House of Lords has the Speaker, but as I've said, the role is different than in the House of Commons. So I'm going to share with you now two debates, both in the House of Commons, and I'll show you your first activity sheet in just a moment. It's a table. You're going to complete the table either after or during watching the debates. You might want to even move the clip back so you can hear them again rather than just working from the first time. So two different debates. I'll make it clear which one's which. So just keep watching to see what the table looks like. So this is going to be your first activity. You're actually going to be listening to two debates. They're both a couple of years old because obviously at the moment a lot of them are done on webcam, and it was I wanted to try and find something that would showcase kind of the roles and so on. So you're going to listen out for is it noisy or quiet? Did members listen to each other or talk over each other? Were people agreeing or disagreeing? And then complete that for debate 1, and then complete it again for debate 2. Who could you see doing jobs, and can you make a note of any roles that you can hear as well in the first clip and in the second, and what worked well and what didn't work so well in the clips as well. So the first one is a much busier House of Commons, and the second one is much quieter, so they are quite different as well. So obviously if you don't have a printer, you can just make a note of these questions on a piece of paper, and then please upload them onto Seesaw once you have completed it. So in this clip from 2019, the House of Commons are debating whether they should bring the election forward ahead. So Boris Johnson is talking on behalf of the Conservatives. He's obviously putting that motion forward, and then you will look out for how people are acting in the background, listen out for any roles. I will pause and skip at different points because obviously every time someone speaks it does last for quite a while, and I don't want you to listen to lots and lots of content. I just want you to see the varied amount, so just bear with me. It might be a little bit choppy in places while I just pause and adjust the video for you there. Okay, so let's hear a little bit of what's going on here.
Frustration will go on, Mr. Speaker. The anxiety will go on. And the angst and uncertainty that is felt by millions of people and businesses across the country will be unnecessarily and unfairly prolonged and exacerbated. That's the reality of what the opposition's course condemns this country to. And if I'm wrong, then the remedy is very simple, Mr. Speaker. The opposition, the right honourable gentleman and all his cohorts on the front bench, they can vote for this motion tonight. They can vote for this motion tonight. Bring it back. Let's get Brexit done, and then let's make our cases. Let's go our separate. The opposition does not wish to take that opportunity. We must, if he wants simply to delay Brexit, if he wants to frustrate yet again the democratic will of 17.4 million people and frustrate democracy in this country, then I'm afraid we must have an election. We must have an election now. And I commend this motion to the House.
The question is that there shall be an early parliamentary general election. I call the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, this is a Prime Minister who cannot be trusted. Having illegally prorogued Parliament for 5 weeks for his Queen's speech, he now abandons that Queen's speech. He got his deal through a second reading, then abandoned it. He promised us a budget on the 6th of November, and then he abandoned that too. He said that he would never ask for an extension. That we learn secret meetings have taken place between government officials of the UK government and representatives of US pharmaceutical firms, where the price of National Health Service drugs has been discussed. Mr. Speaker, we have a Prime Minister who will say anything, do anything to get his way. He will avoid his responsibility.
No wonder we cannot have a budget to promote our economy. No wonder we cannot govern with aplomb in the interest of the British people. If this House cannot do better, then I think the Prime Minister is right, that it must dissolve and ask the people to choose a better Parliament. Either we need to be a better Parliament, or they need to choose a better Parliament as soon as possible.
Mr. Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I begin by thanking the European Union for granting the extension that this Parliament asked for under the Benn Act? We are not leaving Europe on the 31st of October, as the Prime Minister told the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom that we would be doing. The Conservative Party and the Prime Minister defeated, Mr. Speaker, once again. Mr. Speaker, a general election on the terms offered by the Prime Minister are not and will not ever be acceptable to the Scottish National Party. But, Mr. Speaker, doing nothing is not an option. The impasse cannot remain forever.
Okay, so this is the second debate now. You'll see it's quite different from the first one that you've watched. The chamber is much quieter, and I think the tone of the debate is quite different as well. So again, listen out for what you think, if it's noisy, how people are responding, any particular roles that you see, and any good or negative features of the debate as well. So this is your second debate to watch now.
Called holidays, but of course it widened out from that brief all too quickly. I will very happily.
I'm grateful to the Honourable Gentleman for giving way, and I commend his speech thus far, not a single point of which I think it is possible to disagree with. And I have found in recent months, in my own constituency, traditionally seen as a relatively well-off part of London, real evidence of hunger and the need for the food bank that we have, but also
Happily give way to my friend from Coventry. of one of the recommendations in the report. I wasn't going to take it up because I wasn't quite sure how many other people would be in the debate wishing to take that up, because it's in fact part of one of the recommendations in the report, and it's very, very important that here is a targeted benefit which fails to reach most of the people to which it is aimed to help. And maybe when the Minister comes to reply, he'll be telling us what the government's response is. I'll happily give way to my friend from Coventry.
Friend for giving way. Prior to 2012, and this is the point he touched on, food banks were really set up by the churches and voluntary organisations to help refugees. But since 2012, it's become institutionalised. Only a couple of weeks ago, I visited a food bank in Coventry, a major distributor. It's got 9 outlets. 22,000 people in Coventry last year used those food banks.
So just once again, make sure that you have listened to those clips. You might want to listen to them again, and you're just going to complete in debate 1. Was it noisy or quiet? Well, I know I've got quite strong opinions on how that was. The other members listen to each other or talk over one another. Again, make a note of how that is, and then you've got a comparison between the two. So now you've listened to 2 debates and completed the table of information about them, you're actually going to prepare for a debate this afternoon. So in this afternoon during your live briefing, you're going to be engaging in a class debate. But beforehand, you should prepare some ideas that can actually be used in for and against that debate. Now, your teacher may have different ideas with how this is actually set up, so it's important to prepare for both sides of the argument. This also helps you anticipate what your opponents may argue back with. So I'm going to show you how I would plan that out for a different debate topic. So my debate topic I'm imagining is Ark Franklin should have 1 paper-free day per week. Your debate will be different. So this is just my example of how I would plan that out. So just bear with me while I get that ready. So here you can see I've not got a printer, but I can still plan out the motion and my arguments for and against. So remember, this one is my example. You're not debating this one this afternoon. This is just to show you how I would set it out. So my example motion is Ark Franklin should have 1 paper-free day per week. So you need to think of what the benefits would be, how that would work. So obviously you're going to have a different motion, so think about what good things would come of that. And then against, you're going to think about what bad consequences there might be or why it wouldn't work. So it's easier, I think, to think of for. So reasons for, well, paper-free day, the easiest one for me to go to would be thinking about the environment. So environmental impact. Obviously, it's great to be thinking about those consequences. Environmental impact, be reducing any waste. And then also thinking about paper free, we're not using paper, we're not using a resource, which means we're not using money. So it would also save money for the school. And that money could be spent on other things. So you might expand the point as well. So beyond save money, it could be spent elsewhere. And you might even give examples of that. So maybe sports equipment, or you know, towards the art studio or something like that, or to create something else, or even to you know, that money could go for raise money environmentally. And then finally, and now I'm speaking from personal experience here, you might have seen me or a different teacher getting a little bit cross with the photocopier, and I think that it would also save a lot of time. So it would save time. By not printing and photocopying. I wonder how many minutes a year I spend at the photocopier, and that would certainly save some time there. So I think I'd be quite convinced by those points. However, there are lots of reasons against it as well, why it wouldn't work, which is a little bit trickier. So yes, environmental impact, it would save money, it would save time, but then you've got to think about, in a world where we didn't have paper for a day, what the result would be in the classroom. And obviously it would be quite difficult to learn, especially if we were doing something like you know, in maths. How would that look? And then, you know, in writing we wouldn't even have any big paper. What would that be like? And when you'd just be looking at a board, and you wouldn't probably enjoy it very much, so it'd be quite difficult to learn. without paper. And it would also mean that what would you write on then? Would we still use our exercise books, or would it be more the worksheets that we ban? If it's the exercise books we don't use, and you've not really got a permanent collection of the work that you did. That completed is not permanent. And it would also limit the subjects taught on that day too. So it would mean that you wouldn't be able to do art, writing would be difficult, maths would be trickier. And I'm going to be a bit cheeky, and some people may learn better from paper. Okay, so these are all hypothetical. They are not, you know, going to be enacted as far as I'm concerned. So this is just a hypothetical situation, thinking for and against that motion. So please continue watching so you can see how you can create your for and against for your motion that you're going to debate this afternoon. So now you've seen how to plan it out. Your motion is going to be all children should have to join a sports club or team. This is purely hypothetical. It's not going to be acted out at all. This is just purely for the to debate, for the fun of debating it. So don't worry if this fills you with dread. It's not happening, but we are just debating the concept. So you're going to be invited to debate it this afternoon, and your teacher will split you perhaps into a for and against group on the issue. They may change this depending on time and the logistics, so just be prepared to be adaptable with this. But either way, you're going to prepare for and against for the motion, and then at least you have something to say depending on if you are organised in that way. So you may be put in a group that you don't necessarily agree with, but that is fine because you're still going to prepare points for both sides. But please just be adaptable with this, as your teacher may change how that is. So as long as you've got your points planned and you are ready to debate this afternoon. And the independent activity for activity 2 looks like this. So the motion is given at the top of the page. The motion, all children should have to join a sports club or team. You want to think of 3 reasons for, like I did earlier with the paper-free day, and then reasons against. Obviously you do not need to print this off. You can use lined paper for this, no expectation at all, but you need to print it off. So pause the video here whilst you complete that, and then come back for some final questions to recap at the end of the lesson. And by the time you come to the afternoon briefing, you should have a clear grasp on the subject of the debate. You should have your main argument ready and at least 3 main points to support the argument. I'm giving you 3 on your sheet to complete, although you are more than welcome to add in extra ones as well, just when we've got a good spread of ideas. So remember that you can challenge other people on what they're saying, but you should express your opinion respectfully, no personal attacks. So well done, quite a busy lesson today with lots of different things going on. Hopefully you enjoyed it and you're ready for your debate this afternoon. So a few questions to go over. Can you remember who chairs the debate in the House of Commons? Can you remember what type of listening is important in a debate? Is it passive, active, focused or energetic? And why is debating and good debating etiquette relevant to our school? So good luck with the rest of your lessons today. Really looking forward to hearing how your debates have gone in the afternoon as well. I wonder if you can change my mind. So have a great day everyone, and a lovely weekend too. Bye bye.